There's a lot to be said about what it is that makes a video game good. The use of the term good is completely subjective here because each person has their own opinion of what makes a game good in their eyes. It's different for everybody. Taking a scroll through the internet, you'll find that there's large groups of people that share the same ideas of what they think makes a game good. Things like having the best graphics, if a game runs at a high FPS or not, whether or not the story is good, what it's available on, how it controls. There's a lot of different factors for what goes into making a game good to each person. When the subject comes up, however, I feel like one of the lesser talked about aspects of a game and what makes them good is the music of the game. Now, don't get me wrong, I don't think it's something that's overlooked by any means. There's obviously a large crowd that focuses on music, and even award shows have categories for best soundtrack and best sound design. But compared to the discussion of graphics, gameplay, and control, I feel like music is something that people tend to sleep on. If you watched my last video on Persona 5, you recall that I mentioned music has been a big part of my life for a long time. The music of a video game is honestly one of the biggest factors when deciding if I want to give a game a try. Persona 5, I heard Rivers in the Desert and I thought, man, I want to know where this song comes into play. Apex of the World from Fire Emblem Three Houses, the area themes from Xenoblade Chronicles 2, all of the Sonic music. I don't think I'd enjoy these games nearly as much as I do if the soundtracks weren't so damn good. This video is going to be structured with 4 main topics that I wanted to take some time to discuss. In my original draft of the script, there really wasn't any sort of structure that I was trying to follow, and it led to something that I can only describe as sporadic at best and a jumbled mess at worst. So to avoid that issue this time around, the 4 topics of music in games that I wanted to discuss are battle and boss themes, area and atmospheres, music in the moments, and a last topic that I'll reveal when we get to it. Full warning, this video will get into minor and major spoilers for some of my favorite games, but if spoilers don't bother you, let's get into it. The importance of a good battle theme cannot be understated in my opinion. Battles are so common throughout so many games that the themes attached to them kind of have to be good, or else the battles won't be fun to play. And if the battles aren't fun to play, the game isn't fun to play.
If it's not fun, why bother?
There are a lot of examples that can be made for both good battle themes and bad battle themes, though it's not exactly a clear line. Some battle themes can be good, but because of how they're used, can become bad. An example of this that comes to mind is from Sonic Unleashed. The battle theme for this game is a really great track in my opinion. I enjoy this one quite a bit actually. But the issue lies in how often it plays. Battles in this game come and go far too often sometimes, and as a result, you only end up hearing maybe the first 15 to 30 seconds of the track before the battle comes to an end, only to hear it start up again just a couple feet later. I can only hear the same drum fill and trumpet start up so many times until it starts to become tiring to the ear. It's the same situation with the Pokemon battle theme, specifically the startup of the theme. This is only an issue with how often the battles take place though, and not the track themselves. If we want to talk about battle themes that I think work, one that immediately comes to mind is from Final Fantasy VII Remake and the opening mission. The opening sequence is backed by the track Bombing Mission. This piece does a really good job at setting the mood for the mission that Cloud is on with Barret and Avalanche. The mood is tense, suspenseful, and during the battles, very impactful. This track does a really great job at not only being the battle theme, but also a background theme for the moments when you're not in battle. A tough balance to accomplish, but a balance that this track does really well. While we're talking about Final Fantasy VII Remake, the boss themes in this game are just on a whole different level. I never played the original Final Fantasy VII, so I never really had a nostalgic attachment to the music in this game. When it came to fight some of the bosses of this game, it was my first exposure to some of these pieces, and man, the boss themes in this game are so iconic that it's almost impossible to choose which one I would consider my favorite. One Winged Angel is obviously up there in terms of recognition and impact. The theme used during the Airbuster theme, a remake of Fight On from the original Final Fantasy VII, goes so hard it's kind of amazing. Midgar Expressway is a really great compilation of a couple battle themes. But the one I really want to focus on here is Genova, and how it teases fans of the original theme by referencing the original theme while not exactly being the same, ultimately giving fans the payoff in the third phase with an amazing remake of the original boss theme. One of my favorite games that I played in 2021, surprisingly enough, was Fire Emblem Three Houses. And while that game's regular battle themes are already so amazing, there's one theme that sticks out to me the most, and it's God-Shattering Star, one of the final boss themes of this game. This one is so good with its impactful combination of synth and orchestral instrumentation. The vocals are just something else, in an entirely made-up language no less, to really drive home how old the final boss truly is. I feel like this theme does so much right as a final boss theme. Without a doubt though, one of my favorite styles of music for final bosses has to be orchestral music. The massive bands with all these strings and winds playing with such grandeur for the climax of the adventure that you've just taken part in, it's something truly special. And no series has done it better in my opinion than the Sonic series. And for my example, we're going to circle back to the first game I brought up in this segment, Sonic Unleashed. Something that this series started doing since Sonic was 6 was using an orchestral rendition of the main theme as its final boss music. And my personal favorite usage of this trend has to be with Sonic Unleashed and its orchestral remake of its main theme, Endless Possibility. The theme itself I'm already a huge fan of, but the orchestral remake is just something beautiful to take in. While battle themes have a lot of significance in games, it's not the only significant factor music can play a part when playing a game. Another huge factor of a game's music comes in its area themes. If a battle theme needs to be good in order to keep the game interesting and fun to go through, things like overworlds and hubworlds need to have good themes to keep us wanting to get from point A to point B. There are many approaches to this, with each game using one that fits that game the best. One game with world music that goes for a kind of grand adventure feel is Xenoblade Chronicles 2. A lot of the land themes have such sense of grandeur to them. The Gormat Providence theme really drives home that big adventure feel. The Kingdom of Arise theme is such a beautiful piece with its instrumentation and just playing with such emotion. Both themes are really good along with many others in this game, but none stand out more to me than Moraidane's theme, Roaming the Wastelands. This was actually the first song I listened to from the Xenoblade Chronicles 2 soundtrack, and it's actually what got me to try out this game to begin with, and that was an amazing decision because this game is phenomenal. Though this approach definitely works, it's by no means the only approach. One game that does exceptionally well with its area themes while also doing so in a very minimal way is Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. Breath of the Wild doesn't have a big, grand overworld theme like past Legend of Zelda games. Themes like Hyrule Field, Termina Field, the Great Sea with their set forth feel to them is not found in this game. The overall theme in Breath of the Wild is very quiet, very minimalist, most sounds only coming from the piano, which only plays a couple notes at a time, seemingly sporadic. This game also makes use of adaptive music. where the rhythm and pace of a song will change depending on what's happening in the game. It's most noticeable during the battle themes in this game, where the song starts quiet but gradually gets more hectic as the battle gets more chaotic. This effect isn't exclusive to battles, however. The same thing happens when you're riding a horse, as well as separate tracks for day and night. It fits the atmosphere in this game really well, in my opinion. Speaking of games with great atmosphere, the Metroid series, in my opinion, does the best job at making me feel a sense of danger, uneasiness, loneliness in the world, and in general hits the bullseye of building an atmosphere. And no game does that better, in my opinion, than Metroid Prime. As a kid, this game made me feel so many different emotions with its world and its sounds of its world. I feel the biggest sense of warmth in me when I hear the Talon 4 overworld theme. Despite the world being gloomy and cold with the rain, it's a sense of familiarity nowadays, and it's truly comforting. Phendrana Drifts always hits me hard in the nostalgia bone with its opening piano. It just gets me every time. Where it excels in making me feel comfortable and happy, it does equally as well in making me feel tense and anxious, specifically when you get to the Space Pirates base in Phendrana Drifts. Music not only has a big role in making gameplay more engaging, but it's also key in making the moments in games more impactful. There are a lot of examples of moments in games where the emotional impact that you're meant to feel is felt significantly more because of the sounds that accompany the moments happening in the game. Admittedly, this first example is kind of a blend of both a boss theme as well as a cutscene, but it felt more appropriate to include it in this section. The moment I want to talk about comes from one of my favorite games of all time, Persona 5. The final boss of this game, specifically the end of the fight, is really interesting because you're actually in full control of the fight. Granted, your options are very limited and you only really have one way to play through it. It doesn't feel limiting though. If anything, it's more satisfying being able to be the one that pulls the trigger on the final boss. And the theme, Our Beginning, playing in the background amplifies this moment to a whole new level.
I see. If a god plays naughty, then it's a demon lord's duty to punish him. What better way is there for a finale as a trickster? Joker, we're entrusting our strength and the people's hopes to you. Put an end to this!
Pillage him! Satanael! Be gone.
Preposterous! You dare honor people's wishes!
Something that story-driven games aim to achieve is evoking emotion via the game's storytelling, and one of the key factors in achieving this is the music accompanying the scene playing out on screen. An emotional moment can be so much more impactful if the music in the background is there to make sure you feel how you're meant to feel. If it's a joyous moment, the track will play to evoke that. Same thing if it's a sadder moment or a bittersweet moment. The backing music can honestly make or break an emotional moment in any game. I feel like I felt this the most with Breath of the Wild and the character themes of this game, spending the journey going through each divine beast trying to free them from Ganon's control, and learning about the champions. I grew attached to a lot of these characters, and when the time came to finish the game, hearing all these themes play again during the credits got me very emotional. A reminder of everything that you just experienced, the hardships and the triumphs. It's a beautiful compilation of all the main themes in this wonderful game. If we're to talk about games that do a really great job at evoking emotions with its moments, well, there's one more game that immediately comes to mind. Undertale. There's so much that I can say about this game, but without a doubt, when it comes to evoking emotions with music, I cannot think of any other game that comes close to making me feel certain ways when some of these songs play. There's a lot of sentiment in a lot of the songs that play in this game, and it's all because of the writing of the game. Undertale creator Toby Fox did an outstanding job with the writing of all the characters in this game. Even the characters you may find annoying still have a charm to them that you can't help but acknowledge. The story of this game is one that's stuck with me since the first time I played it. On surface level, it seems like a very basic story, but the world built around it, when you get to explore it further and deeper, finding darker plots that make you more curious about what's really going on in this world, it starts to become something much greater, something that I really wish I could experience for the first time again. I know I said that this video would be spoiler heavy, but even with that warning, this game isn't one that I want to spoil for anyone, because I truly believe that if anyone wants to try this game out, they should do so with no context of the story. It's a magical experience in my opinion. This final section that I purposefully decided to keep hidden is a very personal one. And because of its nature, I felt that solely talking about my personal experiences didn't seem appropriate. So I reached out to a couple of friends to help me out with this last part. The last thing I wanted to talk about is our connection to the music. This last section is a very personal one because for all the stuff I mentioned in the past however long this video has been, the most important thing that music in games has been able to accomplish is the connection between ourselves, our personal experiences, and the music in the games that we love. I asked several friends to send me a couple songs that stuck to them from any game of their choosing, and why that song has meaning to them. And to my surprise, I got a lot of responses, with a lot of different reasons for the choices being made. Some of them are pretty simple, like these responses. Sometimes the attachment we have to music isn't a very deep one. It's as simple as we like how it sounds. Like discussed in the last section, moments in the music can also have an effect on us and the attachment we find ourselves having with the music, like these responses. There's no doubt that the reason we get attached to some of these songs is simply because of nostalgia. The memories of the good times we've had with these games and these songs, like these responses show. Beyond being nostalgic to most, some people have also found a sort of safe haven and comfort in these games with these songs, like these examples. For me personally, there's two songs that come to mind when I think of what music has left an impression on me that I've grown emotionally attached to. These two songs are The Last Scene and Live and Learn, both from probably my favorite video game of all time, Sonic Adventure 2. Live and Learn is the main theme of this game, as well as the final boss theme. I played this game at a very young age, back when finishing video games seemed like an impossible task, and it was the one I wanted the most. I frequently rented it from our local video shop that also happened to have games, and this game was what got me into gaming to begin with. It introduced me to the Sonic series in general, a series that, despite its hardships, is one that I'll always support and buy the next installment of. Beating this game was a big deal to me at the time, and both songs that play at the end of the game will always have a special place in my heart. There's an impact that video game music has left on almost anyone who's ever played a video game before that can't be denied in my opinion. I felt so passionate about making this video for a lot of reasons, but it was mostly to give some love to video game music, an entertainment medium that I don't think gets nearly as much love and attention as it truly deserves. I remember growing up in high school, there wasn't nearly as much love for the idea of casually listening to video game music as there is now. A common thing I heard back then was that video game music isn't real music, and at the time, I didn't really know how to respond to that. Whenever that was brought up, it made me a bit sad because I really enjoyed listening to video game music. Nowadays, with more video game music being accessible via streaming platforms like Spotify and Apple Music, as well as YouTube uploads of classic Nintendo music because they refuse to put their own music on any sort of platform, it seems like it's being more commonly accepted that this music is good in its own right, some even better than mainstream artists, I'd say. It took some time for me to realize it, but there is no such thing as fake music. Music is art. It's whatever it means to us as an individual. Music is music, and that's the beautiful thing about it.